Hello and welcome to Beyond Business. This is the program where we look at the latest trends in the global economy. Today, we're taking a closer look at the world's fastest growing media business. We're digging deeper into the global market for video games. There's a lot at stake. Last year, the video game Call of Duty fetched $1 billion in just 16 days. And the entire global market is forecast to reach more than $80 billion by 2015, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers. At the moment, the market is dominated by American, European and Japanese companies, but local players in the Middle East, they're hoping to break that dominance. And for many of them, it's not only about the money, but also about cultural influence.
December 2011. Welcome to Paris's Game Connection. The annual convention brings together the video game industry from around the world. Attendees hail from Japan, France and the United States, but also the Middle East, a promising region with 250 million potential players. And Iran is leading the way.
Iran is a major participant in international video game conventions, like this one. They're investing wisely and carefully and providing support to companies, a bit like you'd see in France, the UK or Germany. Nuclear power isn't Iran's only way of conquering the world. They have video games too.
And that's a goal of Iranian developer Ashraf Jafari. He was behind the 2007 release, Garshasp, which was translated into 7 languages. The game is based on a hero of Persian mythology and became a hit in the UK, Germany, New Zealand, and Russia.
We've been trying to develop a fun game, so being fun was the number one. And second one was to target oldest mythological stories, because within mythological stories you can find a lot of from graphical elements that is unique to great lessons and promising adventures.
The engine behind the country's push is the Iran National Foundation of Computer Games. They're financing smaller studios to develop titles in all the classic genres, from car racing to role-playing. The games are based on Iranian culture and come in Persian and English. The only topic that's off limits is politics.
Actually, there are a lot of games against Muslim country and showing Muslims as terrorists. We didn't come up with any games by this time actually against United States or against Israel or something like this. But we can do this. But we believe that game is a fun and exciting media. We should not bring up with political issue.
No interest in imitating games like Call of Duty or Battlefield that are often inspired by, if not based on, wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Instead, many games focus on Iran's own history. Set in 1907, Cry of Freedom challenges a player to expel English colonists. But Iran is not the only Middle Eastern country opening up to the video game sector. Gaith Kawar is from Jordan. His company is less than a year old, but he hopes it can become the largest developer in the region.
The first thing we need to do is to cover our region first. So we have to create games that are culturally sensitive, that are in the Arabic language, to cater to this huge population.
The first game Kawar developed, he put on Facebook. The social networking site proved to be an easy way to reach his target audience.
The idea of this game is a street fighting game, so people hit each other, but it's taken from a famous Egyptian play. It was done back in the 60s. It's very famous and popular in the Arab region, so everybody can relate to it.
Kawar wants to turn Jordan into the hub of the Middle East. Today he's showing his latest demo, hoping to build new partnerships.
The interest that we get from international players such as Unity and others is very promising for us and very encouraging to see their interest in our region as well. So together we can work to build a nice gaming sector in Jordan for the entire Middle East, and hopefully we can reach the entire world.
And it's not just in the Middle East. New players are emerging around the world, such as Vietnam. A company there recently released a game based on the First Indochina War. The player is a Vietnamese soldier who has to fight off French troops. Such storylines only prove how video games are truly a global business.
Okay, for more now on this, I'm joined here in the studio by Hovig Terminassian. He's a lecturer in geography at the University of Tours here in France, and he's also the writer of a book in French called Les Jeux Vidéo, which translates into video games, roughly. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Now, as I said, you're a trained geographer. Why are you interested in the video games market?
Well, I think there is two responses possible to that question. First of all, there is almost no video game without space. For example, it can be only a road behind the wheels of your car, but it can be a whole universe. So there is almost always a space in a video game. And the second response is the fact that there is some diversity in the world of the ways of creating a video game and the way of playing at those video games. The content of video games is not the same for example, in France, in the United States, or in Japan, or in South Korea, and the way of playing is not the same.
It's geographically different.
Yes, geographically. There is a geography of players and a geography of the industry of video game.
I also take it that you're a gamer yourself, and that perhaps is 1/3 reason.
Yes, I confess I am also a player.
Now, let me start out then, or let's focus in a little on the Middle East. Do you think there is a pent-up demand among gamers there for games with local flavor?
I think, yes, there should be a demand. That's why there is now a foundation, in Iran, for example, to promote local video games. Maybe the explanation is the fact that we have here many young people, which maybe have some interest in that new culture, video game culture. And also, it is a way for the industry, the video game industry, to not let the monopoly of the video game industry to Western industrials, in order to propose some video games which are more linked to the culture or the history of players, of local players.
Now, you suggested that a gamer in South Korea, for instance, or in the Middle East, he or she is different from a gamer in France or in the United States. Could you take us through that? Why do you think that is?
In fact, we have some examples. We have some scholars in France who work on these questions. For example, an ethnologist named Chloé Parbers, who showed that South Korean people do not play the same way than French people or American people, and they do not play to the same games. We have some video games created by South Korean industry who are not sold in France or United States. It's the same in Japan. In Japan, there is some tradition of video game style which is very narrative, with lots of characters, linked to the history of the manga and the anime in Japan. And those particular video games are not very appreciated by most people, most players in France or United States, because they are maybe too long or too narrative, for example. So these specific video games are especially for people in these countries.
It sounds as if video games makers that are really under pressure to make their products for specific markets.
Yes, I think to make products for specific markets, but also to make products who can be exported. For example, in the documentary, our Iranian publisher explains us that they do not want to make politics in the game. They take reference in the history more and not in contemporary conflicts. It's maybe a way to seduce American players or European players, I don't know, by proposing games which aren't linked to the contemporary conflicts, in order not to shock them or not to make them turn.
Not to alienate them, basically.
Yes.
Now, as we just heard, though, in the report, even though we had one of the people saying we don't want to mix politics with video game making, it seems, though, as if some people are mixing politics and ideology with video game making. Do you think it works? Is there ideology in video games?
Yes, I think there is ideology, and I'm not the alone to think that. But in fact, saying that we don't want to make politics, it's a way of making politics in some sort of way. But more generally, we can maybe distinguish two kinds of video games. Video games which are only representational. They are only mirrors of our society and the way we are representing ourselves, our society, our world. And there are other kind of video games which are more propaganda games. There are anti-American propaganda video games, but there are also pro-American propaganda video games.
But I suppose the basic question is, do gamers care when they play video games?
That's a very difficult question, very tough, in fact, because we're not very sure. Well, we can be sure that there is some diversity, and that maybe some players are very they integrate the discourse, the ideology. But we don't know very well if these players are very numerous or if the majority of players do not care. It's very difficult, in fact, to answer to that question. We can only postulate that there is some diversity, some variety in the way of caring of the content of these video games.
All right. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Hovig Terminasian, thanks very much indeed for
You're
taking
welcome.
the time to speak to us. And with that, we're going to wrap up this edition of Beyond Business. Thank you for watching. And don't forget that you can get more business news on our website. The address, just as usual, is france24.com.